Which city are you not going to visit ever again and why? Egyptians, here we go again. I did meet someone who said this favorite place was in Egypt and regularly went back. This surprised me as he was a stoic Swiss man. What he loved was this 5-star resort with unlimited food and drinks. He didn't leave the resort and would just watch the sunset. I, as a Swiss person, am not surprised. Lots of Swiss love to travel to Egypt or Turkey and stay there in all-inclusive 4 or 5-star resorts, and most of them never actually see the country or even the city. Port-au-Prince. Was checking my watch every few minutes, counting down the days and hours until I could leave. It was a scary place where even those that are supposed to protect you are open to attacking and robbing/kidnapping/murdering you. Same. Only time I've had bodyguards. Had to sign a waiver that basically said that whatever happened to me if I decided to go somewhere without them was on me. It was so sad. And that was before the 2010 earthquake. I wish we had one when we went to the Bahamas. Our boat driver fucking ran right through a narrow and low speed between 2 very expensive boats. Like a bat out of hell. 2 of the guys jumped on board and beat the shit out of the pilot. It was new to see 2 white guys who looked like they belonged in the Beach Boys talk in a perfect West Indies accent, who turned out to be like 16. Then the boat started leaking. Bad. Crew was like, this ain't no thing, we got 2 stops. Us and the other couples noped the hell out of there on Cable Beach and hired our own boat back to town. I was in country for 7 months, but we were about 3 hours away from Pap. The small town was horribly impoverished, like all Haiti, but it never felt unsafe. We'd white guys would walk around at night without thinking about it. Trips to Pap were usually fine, but I'll never forget the look in our guide's face when we drove by Site Soleil and he locked the doors. We stopped for lunch and I felt awful eating as a crowd of young boys gathered around us and begged for leftovers. I gave mine to the nearest kid and saw them fight over it. We went in 2015 before it really went downhill, but I can't imagine I'll go back anytime soon. Birmingham, Alabama. My wife was almost kidnapped right in front of me while I was holding our infant. Luckily, she's scrappier than she looks and they gave up when they couldn't quickly shove her in the car. Cairo. I've seen everything I wanted to see there, but would never return. Tourists are treated like cattle there by those involved in the tourist trade, much to the embarrassment of the many good Egyptian people who live in the city. Come to Cairo, Illinois, there's an abandoned theater with trees growing inside it. That actually sounds awesome. Marrakesh, Morocco. Only place I've ever been that I've sworn I'd never go back to. After 2 days of walking around followed by groups of men and boys trying to touch my wife, who was dressed modestly with legs and shoulders covered, followed by aggression when either me or her voiced our displeasure with this, we gave up trying to sightsee and spent the rest of our vacation in the hotel. I had this exact experience. Not safe for solo female travelers. I have traveled all over the world. Morocco ranks dead fucking last as a place I would visit again. Even the street merchants in Marrakesh are super aggressive. Makes you super uncomfortable. 0 out of 10 would not recommend. Don't forget the constant harassing, haggling, and the tour guides that come up to you, offer to guide you, and then ask for money. The actual place isn't too bad, but some of the people there are just absolute twats. Egypt, Sharm el-Sheikh. The resort was fine. But stepping in the city market, big aggressive vibe towards woman tourist. Even when the BF is next to her. LOL, I remember being followed down the street by 24 shopkeepers, taxi drivers and others. Insane. Bradford, UK. It just doesn't have a lot going for it, unfortunately. The sort of place where when people find out you are from out of town, they ask what you are doing there, but not in a sort of cheery, "Oh, what are you here for?" way, but as seriously, "Why have you chosen to come here?" way. I used to live in Leeds and have some Saturday nights out in Bradford in the 90s. Since I left, it's been interesting to see Leeds turn from a post-industrial dirty shithole to a decent city with lots to offer, and Bradford staying a filthy, post-industrial shithole. Cairo. My God. I have said this before, but the pollution, the people asking you for money everywhere you go, the mistreatment of animals. I wish I could say that the historical side of the city makes up for it, but, NOP. The mistreatment of animals doesn't get talked about enough. The street cats are terrified and emaciated. My taxi driver saw a kitten get hit by a car and laughed about it. Traffic stopped because the cat was in the middle of the road wounded, and someone got out of their car and picked the cat up, and I'm thinking, thank God, someone's gonna help the poor thing. Nope. They threw the cat on the side of the road and got back in their car and drove off. They didn't give a fuck about the wounded animal, they just didn't want to damage their car. My experience living in Kadıköy in Turkey was the exact opposite. Happy, sociable, overweight kitties and dogs with food and water and shelters outside of stores and apartments. City park vendors' gazebos stuffed with hundreds of insulated cat beds during the colder off-season. I did once see a couple screaming and crying carrying a, presumably their, cat who had been hit by a car. Within moments, strangers had run over to them, some consoling them, others examining the cat, multiple people making calls to find the nearest open vet, and a handful of people ran into traffic to stop other cars and clear a path once someone else had volunteered to drive them. Yeah, I saw that wherever I went in Turkey too, the street animals are really cared for there. My friend even kept kibbles in her car just to give to them. Stockton, California. The McDonald's had an armed security guy. Growing up, my dad was a crime scene investigator for the DOJ and covered all of Northern California. Like the entire top half of the state. And most of the time when he'd get called, if it was a homicide, he'd be going to Stockton. My buddy's dad is a real estate realtor, and people will ask him for showing in Stockton because it's cheap. He would say, I can show you places in Stockton, but are you absolutely sure that you want to live there?